I just. I don't want to be in the middle. And one of these down there. Spread these out.
With the sound of the main stage sound check going on in the background, please welcome our next interview here at the arena stage at Ascend the Hill. Firstly, guys, welcome. Great to have you here at Easterfest. Is this a first time Australia visit for you guys?
Yeah, very
Yes.
first time.
Welcome. You've been doing a bit of touring. I know you went over to the West Coast over to Perth earlier in the week, and as well, this is something that I thought was pretty cool. You guys threw out a call on Twitter and said, "Hey, we aren't playing in Sydney, but we'd like to be," and you ended up playing in Sydney.
Yeah, we ended up playing at Inspired Church. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's cool. So how did it come about? What happened?
Well, whoa. So yeah, we were flying into Sydney from Perth, and we had a couple days where we knew we could be there before we had to start playing at in Newcastle, and so I can't remember if it was Instagram or Twitter, but someone was like, "Hey, you should play at our church," and then I tweeted, yeah, it was Instagram, and I tweeted, "Hey, we're going to be in Sydney if anyone wants to have us play, even if it's like a house show, like we'll do it." And then I got an email like 10 minutes later, and we played in Sydney. It was nice. Yeah.
130,000 CDs given away in 2012. How does that happen? That's just you guys would prefer to hand out your music. What's I suppose the message and ethos behind that?
Yeah, so like the songs and the music that have become, the calling of our lives and the ministry that we operate in, it's really just a matter of stewarding the gifts and abilities and talents and music and ministry that God has entrusted to us. And so part of it's, the call to radical generosity. We feel like the only message we have to work with was Jesus when he said, "Freely given, freely receive." And so we've kind of just modeled our ministry off that. But basically, it's an opportunity to live a little less selfish and be generous with the stuff God has entrusted to us rather than making that our source of provision. It's an opportunity to say that God is our provision, and however he sees fit to provide for us is up to him. And we just heard from him early on that we weren't going to do the normal band thing and depend on labels and owe money to people and all that kind of stuff, that we were to just be generous with the ministry that God entrusted to us. So it's just stewarding that wise, and for us it means free, So for those of you who don't know, you can go to ascendthehill.com and download all of our music 100% free as a gift. That's not a sales pitch. We don't make anything off of it. You can have it.
Let's stay in that theme. You guys are, I don't know whether they're calling you a record label management, but Come and Live is an organisation that you guys are represented by our Scotties.
Yep.
You guys are actually the first time that I've come across this organisation. I'm sure there's many people here who've never heard of them before as well. Standing for very similar sort of values, I suppose.
Yeah, so Come and Live at its core is a community of artists. It's a non-profit, missions-based community of artists. It's not a label in any stretch of the imagination. There's no contracts. There's no money being passed around. There's no marketing budgets. There's none of that. It's just a community of artists with the like heart and like spirit who have come together to accomplish what we feel like God's put on our hearts. And so we unite under two driving values, and that's simple living and radical generosity. Simple living practically just means that we try to push the standards of success. This world says this is how it looks when you're successful, and these are the things that you have when you're a successful band and all this kind of stuff. And we just try to push those standards farther and farther away. And allow more room for the Lord, hopefully. And then the second aspect is radical generosity, and that just means practically that we give away our music 100% free, no strings attached. So all of the Come and Live community, there's tons of bands, worship artists, hardcore bands, indie bands, like all kinds of killer music that you can just go and download for free.
Very cool. Very cool. For you guys, I mean, just following you on Twitter is exhausting. The amount of work that you guys are doing and the touring that you guys are doing into church show after church show and stuff like this. Is it difficult for you guys? And how do you find time to just receive and be ministered to yourself without an expectation that you would be giving out?
That's a good question. I think it is rough every once in a while, like especially on this trip. This is the longest trip we've done in over a year and a half. We've kind of made it more equal balance recently, being at home and being out on the road. So being out on the road these past 3.5 weeks has been amazing, yet like tolling on us at the same time. Like you said, being in different churches all the time. And then, but I think the thing that keeps us grounded and refreshed is just spending time with each other, being honest with each other, enjoying life, going to some epic beaches that you guys have here in Australia, just looking at every day as an opportunity to live, you know? I don't know. Does that make any sense?
I think a lot of it's too just the community. So like when we're home, we're real involved with a small new church plant in Tampa, Florida, where we're from. And it's just a beautiful community of people, like Hayden said, just doing life together. And when you're real and honest and genuine with not only like your ministry or your calling or your work or all that kind of stuff, but even just your relationships and being real with people, it's an opportunity for life to flourish. And so what gets us through like being on the road or like traveling a lot or constantly working or doing other things, because all of us work jobs when we're home too. Like we're just ordinary people who happen to be able to go out and do what we love from time to time. It's like, it's just the community, the family of Christ, the body of Christ coming together and just being real with people and being honest with our relationships and accountability and grounding. And that in that context, I think like life is a lot easier and better. Just doing real life with other people who aren't afraid to tell you when you're blowing it or doing well, who can encourage you and lift you up and all that stuff.
Absolutely. I guess, you know, touring as you guys have been and being on the road, and I'm sure there's times of intense emotion and loneliness and all that kind of stuff, and you guys have very clearly set a high standard for yourself. How do you, I suppose, avoid those temptations of the world that would come with your profile, that would come with your traveling, and that would come with the tack along when you're out touring?
I'd say like, June?
No, go ahead.
I'd say first, kind of like the last question, just community, and being honest with each other on the road, you know what I mean? But it's also nice with the missions organization we're a part of. It kind of keeps us focused, yeah, I guess, because it's like we're not making a ton of money because we're giving our records away for free. And we usually don't do guarantees for churches or venues or whatever. And, you know, it could be one night where we're playing for 500 kids, and one night it could be 30 kids. So, like, a big thing for us is every night is an opportunity to meet with Jesus, and every day, even when we have days off. So just staying accountable with each other. If there's one of us that's just frustrated and, you know, in a low. I mean, we've all gone through that this trip, you know what I mean? And kind of pulling each other out and doing, you know, just like, dude, let me pray for you, or let me, you know, take you to the side and get some alone time. And I think it's like a lot of just a decision every day to be like, this is what I'm here for. You know, I'm not going to get caught up in the dumb little things, you know, or when that temptation starts to creep in, just sharing it with a dude, being honest about it, you know what I mean?
And just being surrounded with like real people. Like each of us, we know if we're blowing it in some sort of way, we're all pretty aware of the fact that our brothers will be good enough to us and quick enough to let us know when we're blowing it. And then whether it's the four of us or my wife Amy, who travels with us, and JJ, our sound guy, it's just like back to that community aspect, is being willing to have good people around you who have your same heart and same vision and same goals in life and all that kind of stuff, to just call you out on your junk when you're being dumb, and then encourage you in the faith when you seem to be on the right path. Just comes to like a good balance, you know.
You guys kicked off a brand new experience here at Easterfest, which I think is a really impressive thing. 72 hours straight of worship that's happening just down the road. It's a pretty cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Honestly, they set the tone really well with even how they set it up. Like they had a massive cross in the middle of the room, and I mean, it's really difficult to get focused on a performance when you have that, you know, like it was really cool. And that's honestly not our normal kind of flow, kind of stripped down acoustic, and we kind of tend to get a little more loud and heavy and loud. But it was really, really, really good. It was really cool just to be a part of it, honestly. But I mean, I had some awesome worship time. So it was really cool.
Yeah, we all kind of left like, well, we need to do that more,
Yeah.
because like we didn't expect it. We didn't know what to expect. We thought maybe it was just like a normal, and then we got stoked with the idea of like, all right, let's just strip it down. And it's like there's something about getting back to just like the basics, you know, when you don't have any pedals on the ground and you don't have like this crazy lights, and it's just like chill, you know, and people are just laying down or people are in the corner. And it's like, it's a lot of things Joel always says, even in our normal sets, it's like, do whatever you have to do to meet with Jesus in this set. Like, we don't need you up front, right, you know, like raising your hands the whole time. If you want to do that, awesome. If you need to sit down in a corner by yourself, cool. Like, we can't judge on how people worship. So, like, it was cool last night. Everyone just seemed like they were in their own worlds, like sitting on bean bags, just chilling. Like, it was cool.
How do you guys find the space to write worship? How do you get into that space?
I'd say like writing. I don't know. Joel was the worship pastor at our church for a long time. We're brothers growing up, and one thing Joel always said when I started getting on the worship team was like, every time we practice, let's get into worship. You know, like don't just practice just to practice worship songs. It doesn't make sense. And that was something that always, I guess, stuck with me, that Joel always led us in. And I think how we kind of write is just getting into worship, you know, like let's sit down us four in a room, whatever room that is, get into the atmosphere of worship and just go for it. You know what I mean? Sometimes that means one of us bringing an idea. Sometimes it just kind of happens. Sometimes it comes out of stories, you know. There's just so many different ways to get in that atmosphere of worship, you know.
Yeah, I think on that vein Seth was talking about, sometimes it's like when we were going into, we knew we had the studio time booked for the new record. We set aside a couple days a week for the months leading up to it to just like have writing sessions. But then like it seems like some of my favorite songs were just birthed out of like moments of worship, like last night, where you just have an hour to flow. And I mean, technically, we only did one Ascend the Hill song last night in the entire hour of playing. But just like flowing and let the presence of God do what it does. And then like it seems like when you get in those moments, like new creativity and new life just kind of explodes out of those moments. And so like Amy, my wife, was videoing and I was watching a little bit last night, and I heard like 3 or 4 moments that could be like Ascend the Hill songs that are just birthed out of intimate, genuine, raw moments of worship where the song of your heart comes out and it's not crafted and planned and contrived, and it just comes out naturally. And a lot of those moments turn into like beautiful worship songs.
Let's go up a bit. My name's Time Australia, first time Australia. What do you love about us? What are we doing right?
Meat pies.
Meat pie.
Oh, I love meat pies. We had Harry's meat pies. Have you guys heard it? Was it Harry's? Harry DeWills?
Harry's DeWills.
I mean, it was like a meat pie, and then it had mashed potatoes on it.
Mushed
like
peas.
mushed peas. Is that what they call them? When the chili sauce. Woo!
Meat pies.
Something you're doing wrong.
Let's hear it.
There's no hot sauce anywhere. No hot sauce. That's
What's
a problem
wrong with you
for us.
people?
We've like been scavenging like hot sauce from all these different places and keeping of it in Amy's purse and like rationing it out through meals. It's been bad. Yeah,
The hot sauce caterer.
hoarder.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts has just been the scenery. Like some of the most epic coastlines and just like to experience like beauty in its natural habitat, you know, like we're used to big cities and all these things where like man-made architecture and cool stuff and beauty, but like to just feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, the bush, in the middle of the bush, and just like experience like beauty in its natural state has been pretty rad. And your coffee culture is on point. It's been good.
That is true. I spent some time in the US last year, and you guys have a coffee roll.
Yeah, it's super. So here's the thing. In the States, there's good coffee, but you have to look hard for it, or you have to know who to talk to find it. But it seems like in Australia, you can roll into like at least 3 out of 5 cafes are going to be decent coffee, and then maybe 1 out of 5 are going to be like mind-blowing good coffee. But you can't do that in the States. You'll have to go to like 25 before you find 1 or 2 decent ones, and then maybe 1 in 50 is like, oh, good coffee. So good on ya.
Hey, have you been told to check anyone else out while you're here? Is there anyone on the set list at Easterfest that is a must-see for any of you guys?
Well, there's a couple must-sees for us just out of relationship. So when you travel a lot and you tend to meet musicians on the road, and especially at festivals, it's cool to reconnect. So there's like a Canadian band and an American band who are here that we haven't seen in years, so we're running into them in Australia. But United Pursuit, amazing worship band. We're really stoked to see them and be a part of their worship and just enjoy it. And oh, look who he is, Dan Brems, right there. Can't wait to see him tomorrow. Like today. What time today? 2:40, Epicenter. Don't miss it. Dan has written some songs that we play in our church, like when I lead pretty much every time, and then when other people lead as well. But amazing songwriter, gifted, just a gift to the church. So check him out. And United Pursuit. Those are 2 we're super stoked about.
Stevie.
Any recommendations? Oh yeah, Stevie Lujan. He's a YWAMer from Newcastle. Killer songwriter. I just got to do some guest vocals for his new record, and it's going to be coming out soon. But he's doing a couple cafe sets throughout the weekend.
And Jed Appleton. We got the pleasure of meeting this guy over at Forest Edge Festival right outside of Melbourne. And then we saw him, we had an off day out in Melbourne, and we just were walking through some of the laneways, and we just like all stopped and we're like, that's a kid from the festival. And so we walked over and just sat and listened to this guy in the laneway in Melbourne, and he's going to be here also. I don't know what time he plays, but he's
Jed
amazing.
Appleton. He was super good.
Who taught you how to say Melbourne? It's very rare.
Melbourne?
Melbourne.
An American that can say
Melbourne.
That was probably the first thing the guys told to us when we got off the plane.
That was the first city we went to.
Yeah, it was the first city we went to. We got off the plane. This guy Pete picked us up, and he's like, just so y'all know, it's Melbourne, not Melbourne.
Do you know the major capital city that's an hour and a half from here? Do you know what it's called?
Is it Brisbane?
Yes!
Brisbane? Hey.
This is great. So, similar line to...
You should hear everything we butcher, though.
Similar line to the sort of who you want to see here, and outside of the park, internationally, locally for you guys, who is inspiring you in worship? Who do you guys watch that inspires you?
I would say there's a band off Come and Live called Loud Harp, which seriously write that down. Loud Harp. You can download it for free on comeandlive.com. It's just like they just put out an EP record that has just been destroying all of us. Like when I was working a job, I'd have to go like on my break and just put it in and just like sit and listen to it. Loud Harp is phenomenal, and they're so creative and different. For me, that's a killer one.
So Loud Harp's probably like my favorite worship band at the moment. Some friends of ours, the Ember Days from New Zealand, you can download their stuff free too. We Are Creation, a band from Nashville, good friends of ours worship. But I'd say most of the stuff we're digesting nowadays is not really worship music. A lot of it's probably not even technically Christian music. But yeah, just kind of the stuff we're naturally drawn to is a little more raw or dirty than a lot of the polished Christian scene. So.
We had a lot of fun with the St. Israel boys about an hour ago. We just posted. Who has the most embarrassing iPod?
Embarrassing what?
iPod, like
JJ, our sound guy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
while he doesn't have a microphone, what have you found on his iPod?
Kesha. No, so we spent like 3 years on the road full time, which is like 7-8 months per year traveling and touring. And with not charging guarantees and all that kind of stuff, we would, at the end of every tour, if it was like a month-long tour, a month-and-a-half-long tour, since none of us could hold down actual jobs, we'd just look at whatever bills each of us had, cell phone, car insurance, whatever, and just as a pool, just pay for it and make sure it was taken care of. And so we were really, really depending on, and we still do for the most part, just depending on the generosity of the church and random people just to like be generous with their lives and bless us. So in 3 years of being full-time on the road, I was never late on a mortgage payment. None of us are like wasting away to nothing, like food in our bellies and more than enough and all that kind of stuff. So God's hand of faithfulness through that season was just unbelievable to look back and see how God provided through many different avenues, whether it was love offerings or iTunes sales, even though we give away our music for free, or checks in the mail or random stuff. God's hand of provision has always literally just been mind-blowing. And then the last year or so, we haven't been full-time on the road. We just do 1 or 2 weekends a month, which has allowed most of us to hold down actual jobs, which has been really cool because we can feel like we're pretty convinced that outside of God saying go and outside of the grace of God upon our lives to travel, that touring is not healthy. To be gone from home 7 or 8 months a year, you lose grounding, you lose accountability, you lose relationship, you lose community. All the things that we've said have been healthy for us. So outside of the grace of God, when he said go, when we felt that grace lift, we were happy to stop. And it's been rad to be home, have normal lives, hold down jobs, be involved in our church. We just helped plant a new church in Tampa, and like just be in community and be doing real life with people on a normal basis, and then go out 1 or 2 weekends a month has been super rad because we still feel like we have normal lives and we can go and minister and travel. And feel pretty fortunate to still like the kind of jobs we have aren't necessarily like the most glamorous or high-paying jobs in the world to be able to travel still. So it's still a good stretch and test of our faith, but man, God's so faithful. And when you look to him as your provider and not, the paycheck, he uses paychecks, but he's the one who provides. It puts everything in a whole new perspective. And when you align your heart to his purpose and to his plan and his will for your life, things just seem to click. Not that it's always easy and that you're not going to go through like stuff, but your hope and your trust is in the Lord, and he does not fail. Like he just doesn't.
Yeah, and I think like that Joel's saying, like that's another thing that keeps us kind of like, grounded, because so many times it's like music, when you're in a band, it's all about the band, and the band is your life, and being on a platform is your life. And we're just super normal guys, like we're as normal as it gets, and working jobs, being in the world still, we're not just off on tour 8 months out of the year and just in churches, we play bars, we play venues, and when we're home, we're hanging out in the world. We're not just locked up in a church, although we value that and we are plugged into our church community, and I just think that's huge. Like, this music is just another way we worship. It's not the only way to worship. So I think that's...
We'll fly back to the States from Brisbane Monday, and most of us go back to work Tuesday. So that's pretty grounding and humbling to like go play music in Australia and be on stage and all that stuff, and then go back to just serving coffee or teaching drum lessons, or Hayden's an EMT, like paramedic type deal. And it's just like, that's grounding. And it's just a beautiful picture of how God's chosen to use us and keep us planted. It's been sweet.
That's awesome. We've got about 3 minutes, so how loud can you yell? What got you into the hymns album?
Probably my dad, if we look back far enough. So I was a worship pastor at a church in the suburbs of Tampa for about 6.5 years, and my dad was actually a pastor. Seth and I are PKs, and all of us are ministry kids, which is why probably we're so weird. But you laugh. You have no idea. Seriously, stop laughing at us. Well, I don't even remember what the question. Hymns, yeah. So my dad was always like, hey, you know, because we're doing like all these songs and top Christian songs in the church and whatever. And he's like, hey, you should work in a hymn this weekend. And I'd be like, yeah, cool. That's like something for grandmas. And turns out grandmas are the coolest people in the world now, because probably the reason we're here is hymns. But so just like I would come into the office randomly, and there would be like a hymnal book sitting on my desk. And I'd be like, funny joke, Dad. So one day I opened it, and one of the hymns that's on our hymns record was Rock of Ages. I just opened it, and it was just there. And the words like leaped off the page and like gripped my heart. And I mean, I remember just sitting there in my little cubicle in our church office and just weeping like a baby, just totally confronted with the reality of the gospel. And so I think for all of us, it was a realization. We started rewriting hymns for our church. And then it was a realization that our generation was missing out on some depth and some opportunity to learn of his nature and character through song. And so when we started writing music, my dad, again, our pastor, was like, write songs that lead people to Jesus, that point people to him, but also teach them about his nature and character. Because there's so much power in song to get like truth inside of you, especially when you're singing it repetitively. And so we just picked a bunch of songs that were like transforming our lives. And then we asked God to breathe new life in them, like musically. And we literally were going to do like 4 or 5 hymns, like a small little EP. And then before we knew it, it was like it had taken on a life of its own. And it was like this blown up project, and has like done far more than we had ever thought it would. It was just like we were going to rewrite some hymns because they were transforming our hearts, you know. And it's been cool to see like what God wanted to do through those songs versus like, hey, you know, it would be good for our careers if we rewrote some hymns, you know. So, yeah, it's just a testament to God's faithfulness again.
Awesome. Well, we have to wrap up there, but